Hello Boomsters and welcome to the fourth Boom Show. Today, Josh Cobb from Australia is my guest, from Brisbane, Australia actually, and we're going to talk with him in a few seconds. Before we do, I would like to thank Gustavo, who is behind the cameras and who is the producer of this show. Thank you very much, Gustavo. And a little thing that I would like you to know about poker.ch, the channel that we're on. This is a live streaming channel, and I believe this is one of the most interesting experiments right now in the field of corporate media. So if you're looking, as a business, if you're looking to create great content the easy way, or maybe not the easy way, but the very effective way, then this might be something that you want to talk about with us. And the Boom Show itself, in the Boom Show itself, I deconstruct a business growth case with a CEO. It's always about their company, so they really know the ins and outs of that business growth story, as you will see right now, because this takes us right to you. Welcome on the show, Josh Cobb.
Thanks for having me. How you going?
I'm good. What time is it on your end?
It's just gone 9 p.m. our local time.
9 p.m. And are the kids in bed?
Absolutely, on the wall next to me. So, well, I'll try and keep it as quiet as possible, Dave.
Cool. So, welcome, Josh, again. And we want to start with your business growth, the numbers that make it very easy for us to grab what your business growth story is about. And the number that you told me is that you were by yourself doing business on your own 4 years ago. Actually, a little less than 4 years ago, because that's when I met you in the US. And today, you guys are 12 people on the team in less than 4 years. And we want to know how this happened. Are the numbers right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I started the business in October. We had our launch party in October 2014. And it was just me. And it was a bit of a, I don't think it really was a business back then, Dave. It was more of a, let's see what we can do with this passion I had for, I guess, content marketing, which we'll probably get to at some point. But it was just me. We completely bootstrapped the company, and still to this day, we're completely bootstrapped, and we've grown to a team of 12 since then. And we'll do just over $1 million in revenue this year.
So just that we get all the numbers straight, you started in 2014. You and I met in 2016, which was when you still were working on your own. And in those last almost 4 years, this is when the whole growth basically happened, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Good. What is your business today? What do you guys do?
Essentially, our role, Dave, is we work with real estate businesses and real estate agents here in Australia. We have a couple of clients offshore, but Australia is where our clients are. And our role is pretty simple. It's to help real estate agents be more profitable with in their business when it comes to marketing. So looking at how we use the internet and how we use these concepts surrounding digital marketing, like content marketing, inbound, and using those concepts to build better businesses and be more profitable in the process.
One thing that I like very much about your company is that on LinkedIn, the company page is categorized under real estate. That doesn't happen with agencies a lot. You're so focused on your niche that you can say we're a real estate business, whereas every other agency would say we're a marketing business.
Yeah, it's probably I haven't really picked up on that, but that's a good point. I've spent most of my working life in real estate here in Australia, Dave. So I started in real estate back in 2004, I think, and had dreams of working within real estate businesses, but fell in love with more of the marketing side and became a student of marketing. Here we are today. Fast forward to 2020.
Yes, here we are today, and that's also why you and I met, because we were both attending the Content Marketing World in Cleveland, Ohio, as I mentioned before, in 2016. So these growth numbers, or that specific number, is fantastic, and I didn't know about that, but I saw you from afar growing and becoming bigger through LinkedIn mainly. And I just want to congratulate you on that. I think it's fantastic. What was the main...
Thanks, man.
My pleasure. What was the main driver behind your growth?
Look, I would have to take it right back to the beginning, and I was very fortunate to start a business at a time when there's, you know, it was part of the reason we met, was this concept of content marketing resonated with me, Dave, and you know, the idea that you build an audience around your business, and over time, you as long as you're providing consistent and amazing content to that audience, that it really doesn't matter what you have to sell, they will buy it from you. And that concept to a lot of businesses today still seems very, very strange. But I was very fortunate back in 2014 when the term content marketing was still relatively new. You know, the Content Marketing Institute, which is responsible for you and I meeting, you know, it was really early days when it comes to content marketing. So we were kind of at the ground level of learning what this thing was. And I would have to credit our business growth and our business success today to the lessons that I learned from all of the people that were involved at the, I guess, the start of this thing called content marketing, and the lessons that I learned at conferences in the US like Content Marketing World, and spending time with people in that environment. I'd have to credit our business success today fundamentally to the concepts and the steps that we put in place back in 2014 to build our business around the idea.
So that
of content.
podcast that you already had at the time, that is basically what you think was the most important driver of your growth?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I started a business with nothing to sell. I didn't have any products or services to sell. So all we had was a microphone.
At that Content Marketing World, at that conference, the godfather of content marketing launched his book, Content Inc., which kind of laid out exactly that idea that you might start without having a business, without having anything to sell. You start by creating a community, and then they will tell you what they need anyway. So the business can also grow out of that. That's his idea, and he presented it. Yeah. He launched his book at this show, at this conference where you and I met. And it happened for you.
There you go.
When I discuss business growth with CEOs, 3 elements are crucial: people, products, and sales. And I would like to ask you about all 3 of them. How would you rate the importance of product and service on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being super important?
Look, I think I have this idea that, you know, perfection is the enemy of progress, Dave. And I think waiting for any product or service to be perfect is not a great idea. You know, get it into the market, get people learning about, or, you know, playing with it. And that's going to give you all the feedback you need. So I think product is important. Service, I think, is absolutely 10, if not 11 out of 10. I think product is secondary to the service.
So you would even say that product and service is not the same?
I'd actually disconnect the two. Absolutely. I think it's a concept that you know, some might disagree with, but I think you know, a lot of the businesses today that charge a premium for their product, it may not be a better product than their competitor, but they charge more, and their customers are coming to them in large numbers because of the service and the experience they provide. So yeah, I would say that you could disconnect the two, and they're independent of each other, but together, as long as if you've got both at that level, I think you've got something really special.
How about marketing and sales?
Again, I that's something that I wouldn't disconnect. I wouldn't disconnect marketing and sales, and I think marketing today should be informed by the people that are on the front line of the business. And you know, a lot of people have spoken about this. People that you and I follow would certainly talk about this idea of breaking down silos of marketing and sales. So I think together they are far more powerful than the marketing team doing the marketing and the salespeople doing sales. I think the information or the marketing that is being created in any business, doesn't matter what industry or where they are in the world, it has to be informed by the people on the front line of the business, because they're the people that know everything about what their customers want. The people in marketing are just busy doing marketing. So I think together, marketing and sales
and if you take them
need to be
together on
combined.
a scale from 1 to 10, how important is it? Oh, so we only have 10s. Because
absolutely,
the
without a
third
doubt.
thing that I want to ask you about is team. You have employed 11 people right now. I mean, the 12 consists of you plus 11, right?
Yeah. That's
How
right.
about people?
Yeah. Just going back to marketing and sales for a moment, Dave, I think one of the things that has been happening for too long is marketing hasn't been viewed as a revenue driver. And that's something that we're certainly big on with our clients is teaching them the importance of viewing marketing as a revenue machine, not a cost machine. And that is something that's really, and that's why I'd put it certainly at a 10, because marketing today is just such an important role in the sales process. But going to team, and we might get to this a little bit later, but I hear a lot of people say that the customer always comes first. The customer is, they may not always be right, but the customer is the customer. I would say that your team is the most important part of the business, over and above your customers, because they'll take care of your customers if you treat them right. So I think if your CX is right, your UX will take care of itself.
So there is not. If you would have to rate them among themselves, would that be difficult? No, you just said actually that people are even more important than the rest of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You treat your team. Like I said, you take care of the TX or the team experience. The CX or the UX will take care of itself. So yeah, absolutely. Without a team, you don't have a business. You're essentially, some of your viewers might have seen or read the book, The E-Myth. And no one wants to be the guy baking all the pies for the rest of their life, right? So without your team, you really haven't got a business.
Yeah.
You've got a job.
Yes. Good. So these were products. We talked about sales and marketing. I think there is another super important pillar of your success that we haven't discussed yet, and that's your mental state or your mental game. How about your mental game?
I would suggest that a lot of, probably in the last few years, Dave, I've in terms of the things that I focus on from day to day have changed fundamentally. And that I used to race triathlon. I used to be very active and outdoors. I would like to say that I've kept that up after starting a business, but I'll be honest, I haven't, and that's something that I would love to get back to and get training. But in all of that, I've certainly found other ways to fill that void, and it's with podcasts or reading or making sure that we're focused on the right things to get the right outcomes. So if you were asking me, what do I focus on every day when we wake up in the morning, it's to make sure that I learn something before I get started on the day. So whether that's listening to a podcast or reading an article or whatever it might be, and by the end of the day doing exactly the same thing. So in that, I found that has really helped me stay focused on the things that we need to be focused on every day, rather than.
Go ahead,
sorry.
Please.
No, I think rather than filling our time with, I've got two young boys who are 4 and 1.
I don't hear you, Josh. Can you hear me? We're calling him again. Okay, here we are again.
We keep focused on the things that we need to be focused on.
Josh, I didn't hear you for let's say 10 seconds. You were talking about your boys who are 4 and 1 years old.
Yeah. So the something that I've really tried to make sure that has happened in the last couple of years, Dave, is spending the weekends with my kids and my wife, making sure that the end of the week comes, we We put the boat on the back of the car and we go island hopping in and around the city that we live in. So that's really kept things grounded on a personal level, but on a business level, just going back to what I was saying before, I've made sure that every day before we get started on what we're doing for the day, that we make sure that we read something, we listen to something that is going to fill our mind with, I guess, more emphasis on what we're doing, and to make sure that we're focused on the right outcomes.
The thing that I'm also interested in is, was there a lot of drama in your growth story? Like, did you feel that you had to fight a lot?
There's been times, certainly, where it was probably about the end of 2018, I think, when it was like, wow, what are we, 4 years in? Is this something that I want to keep doing for a long, long time? And I was very fortunate to be surrounded by some really good people, and still to this day, who, I was questioning a lot about the business and where we were at that 4-year mark. And, do we go in this direction? Do we move in this direction? And what I've came to realize, Dave, was that, the things that we're doing right now, we need to double down on, rather than taking our eyes off the prize, if you will. And we doubled down at the start of 2019, and we've never done better than what we're doing right now.
Can you give me an example of what that meant, to double down on something? What was that something, for example?
Well, in the digital marketing space, there's lots of things that pull you in different directions, right? So anyone involved in the marketing field, there's always something new that comes along, or a new. Back then it was AI, so artificial intelligence was kind of starting up, and I've got friends and colleagues involved in that space right now, and it was certainly something that was attractive to a lot of businesses. So of course you question, is that something that you get involved with? And it became very clear to me that it wasn't something that we needed to make sure that we delivered the best product possible in what we already do, rather than looking outside of our product suite. So yeah, I think the lesson in that for me was to keep the blinkers on and keep in your lane, and just keep going 100% at what you're doing, and don't be distracted by the new bright shiny thing that comes along.
Is there anything that was important for your success, for your growth, that we haven't discussed so far?
Look, I think probably that on a personal level, Dave, I'm very lucky that I've got a partner that doesn't make me feel bad about how much I work. And that for anyone in business in a leadership level, running a business, CEO, unless you've got someone behind you beside you, I should say, that is, extremely supportive, understands, and is, backs you every step of the way, then it's really hard. Business is a really hard slog. But I'm very fortunate that I haven't, I've got a wonderful wife who understands what it is that we're trying to do here, and doesn't make me feel bad about how much I spend on this business sometimes. So I'm very fortunate in that regard, and absolutely, without question, that's a huge part of where we are today.
I announced in my LinkedIn post today that we're also going to talk about the why you're doing this, and I think that has a lot to do with your family. Do you want to speak about that right now?
Sure. Yeah. I think. Look, business is for a lot of people, it's a long game, right? And what you do, I think it comes down to what type of business you want to run, Dave, as to how enjoyable it's going to be for you. And probably about 4 years ago, I was very lucky to have more of a shift in my focus of the type of business that I was trying to build. And a piece of advice that I was given was, build wealth in your business while you're still running it. Don't expect to build an asset, or not all businesses get that payday. You're building an asset, and then eventually hope to sell it one day. And for a lot of people, it doesn't come
So Josh, you're
and,
basically,
you know,
excuse
that
me,
advice
just
to me.
a second. You're basically saying that we shouldn't build a business for the exit strategy, as many people say. Instead, it should make us money every day.
I think it depends on the type of business you run, Dave. For a lot of people, you know, building the asset to sell one day is a business model. It's a great bit. I mean, wildly successful in a lot of industries. It's not the business I wanted to build, and I wasn't interested in raising capital. I wasn't interested in having thousands of staff or you know, shareholders, and you know that. Yeah, that wasn't me. That's just not the type of business that I wanted to run. At some point, I probably thought it was, and that's where it led to a lot of kind of really uncomfortable feelings about, you know, business and is this the right business? Am I doing this the right way? As soon as I realized, well, I've got friends and colleagues who are involved in that side of business, Dave. So they're all out capital raising and, you know, building large businesses, and it's all about scale, and that just does it. It's just not how I'm wired. I'm not wired to build a business that way. What I wanted, as soon as I realized the type of business that I was building, it all became a lot clearer to me. And where it became clear was when I realized this is a wealth building machine while we still have the business, not just for me and my family, but for all of our team as well. They're just as important in this journey on that side of it as well. So I think absolutely, if scale and building a business to sell it one day is the focus, then absolutely go for it. It wasn't for me, and our business today is a wealth building machine for us. And when I say us, I mean my family, my team, who are our family. And then one day, if we ever sell the business at some point, we're not going anywhere, Dave. But if we ever did one day, you know, if it was a saleable asset to someone, which it's certainly in the back of our mind every day that we wake up, it's an asset that we're building to be valuable to someone at some point. But if it didn't happen, we could very comfortably close the doors and be very comfortable about that decision without being sad that we never sold it.
It does make sense. Thank you very much for this. I get from this that creating the family, the wealth of the family is an important driver for you.
Absolutely. I think that's why anyone works or goes to work from 9 to 5 or whatever hours that they do. And it's not just about the revenue generated or profit generated in the business, Dave, but it's the opportunities that it affords you to outside of the business. So I'll probably bore everyone to death when I start talking about financial literacy and a whole bunch of other things associated with that. But I think people just need to be clear about the business they want to run, what it means to them. And I think that they're two really important things that I didn't realize until a few years into the business, and I regret that.
So when you said everybody wants that, I would say that no, most people just want to have an income. They want to have enough money at the end of the month. And I think creating wealth for you and the family, for yourself and the family, that is something that not too many people actually even want to achieve. So I really like your story. And
Sorry, I stand corrected, Dave. What I was meaning was anyone who runs their own business. It should absolutely be about wealth creation for them and their team.
And there's another thing you said, that you want to create your wealth now, but you're also building assets. You told me during the preparation calls that, for instance, you host the websites or digital applications for many of your clients. I think a few hundred, and that of course is over 300. So that of course is an asset that would work as a business even if you wouldn't be on the company anymore.
That's right. That's essentially in the real estate industry. A business is valued on the what they call in Australia their rent roll, or the properties that they manage. So if a real estate company has 1,000 properties that they manage, that is ultimately the value, the asset of their business. our website hosting that we provide is absolutely our asset or our rent roll, if you will.
Cool. So we're getting the first few questions in. Please ask more questions. I'm going through some more questions that I have prepared, but very soon we're going to open this up. Thank you, Christoph, for asking questions already. Josh, we're going to get back to these later. Is there anything that people talk about business or a pillar of success, if you want to call it that, that people often talk about and you think it's totally overrated, not even worth to talk about it?
Yeah, I often hear people talking about, publicly about their revenue, and that's. I mean, in business, that obviously without revenue, you don't have a business. But I think profit is ultimately a pretty defining metric in my view, Dave. So I think when people start sharing really large numbers around revenue, it's important to dig a little bit deeper on the profitability of the business. And it depends on what size they are. And I guess, if you're talking, go to the extreme Uber, who still aren't profitable, then that's a different conversation. But I'm talking small business, medium enterprise. At the end of the day, building profit within the business has always been a major focus of ours, and I think it's something that should be taught a lot more and so should be part of the conversation.
You should
in
tell us now,
podcasts,
because this is also kind of a podcast, and you mentioned that to me before we jumped on this call or on this show, and you told me that your net profit is 40%. That's a lot. 40%. So
that's right. Yeah, last year we're on track for 50% net profit this year.
What that means, you don't want to talk about your revenue, but you're willing to tell me or to agree or to confirm to me that it's more than $1 million US. So we can all make our own calculations. And the really interesting part here is that somebody has a net margin, a net profit margin of 40%. And you just mentioned it yourself, you're even increasing this in the course of this current year.
That's something that I'm really proud of, Dave, given the circumstances that we are all facing right now globally. It is certainly something that I'm never going to forget, is the things that we did at the start of, I guess, this global crisis that we have right now. And instead of spending more on marketing and spending more on advertising our services, our products, we doubled down on the service that we gave to our clients. And I have no doubt that's attributed to stickiness, or keeping our clients closer to our business, but also in terms of the revenue generation that has created. It's been something that I've been really proud of of my team, that have just delivered a superior experience to our clients at a time when they really needed it, and made sure that they had the tools that they needed. So that's probably the one thing that I'm most proud of, is the results that we've achieved this financial year, considering what the world is going through right now. But I should say as well, David, it doesn't discount how I feel about, I guess, other people that are losing their jobs, and that absolutely breaks my heart. So I should make that very clear, that it's I do not take that for granted, and it is something that while it's something that we're proud of, it's certainly something that we know could very easily go away one day. Did you set out
from the beginning to have such a high profit margin?
No, like I said, I didn't know what type of business I had. I didn't have anything to sell back then. It was I loved podcasts, and I loved the people in the real estate industry, and I wanted to hear their stories. So I started a podcast to learn them, and I had no idea. No, absolutely not. I had no plan or preconceived business plan to be where we are right now. 6 years ago.
And your clients, when they hear that you have a profit margin of 40%, do they call you and renegotiate their deals?
Look, that's a good question. We should probably see what happens after this, Dave. But no, look, it's something that I'm happy to share because we're in the business of helping our clients generate profit, and it wouldn't be, if you're going to engage any marketing consultant, any marketing agency, or any third-party consultant whatsoever, if they're not generating profit in their business, why would you employ them to teach you how to do the same?
Sounds good. We talked about the mental game, and one other question that I have for you is, how do people feel around you when you're successful the way you are? How do people in Australia react to you? Do they celebrate you like the people maybe in California would?
I don't really pay much attention to it, to be honest, Dave. I'll be honest with you. I'm somewhat of I'm showing my true colours here. I was a drummer in a band many years ago, and I sat at the back of the stage. So I'm somewhat of an introvert when it comes to, I guess, networking and that sort of thing. You are fantastic at it. I mean, you approached me at Content Marketing World, right? So it is something that I'm still working on, even to this day, is being more, I guess, better at networking and better at those sorts of situations. So it's something that I'm working on. So I don't pay a huge amount of attention to what people say about our success, but I guess to comment on what you asked more broadly, Australia has a habit sometimes of what's known here as the tall poppy syndrome. So if you are successful, people try to tear you down a little bit before they build you up. It takes a lot more convincing before they'll support you. Whereas in the US, it's a little bit different. If you've got a great idea and a great business and you're doing well and you're successful, people will jump in right behind you not always, but to a larger extent, it happens more than here in Australia. So to comment on your question more broadly, there is a little bit of a focus here in Australia of maybe just pulling people back to reality a little bit, not letting their heads get too far into the clouds, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much. So I think this is the time to go and dive into the questions that we got from the audience. Christoph asks, who are your favorite podcasters personally?
Oh, wow. Dave Hertig from Switzerland. He's my new favorite. Look, I think someone who inspired me a lot back when I first started the business, and someone who I would call a friend, an amazing content creator, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in business, is Jay Bayer, who runs a company in the US called Convince and Convert. So wildly successful agency that Jay runs, a consulting firm in the US, consulting for some of the world's biggest companies. And he has a podcast called Social Pros, where he interviews, he has a few podcasts, but that was the first podcast that I came across Jay. So that's one that I'd recommend. And his new podcast, which is called Standing Ovation, where he interviews speakers, public speakers, guys like Scott Stratton, Joe Polizzi, and all these amazing public speakers. So that's something that I'm really getting into at the moment, is Jay's latest podcast. But if I had to throw another one into the mix, Dave, it'd be silly of me not to mention something that we probably both listen to, which is This Old Marketing by Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose, the guys who started the Content Marketing Institute. Just a very funny, lighthearted hour every week where, and they've just rebooted the podcast, which is really cool. But really giving a succinct overview of, I guess, how marketing is impacting businesses around the world, not just tactics, but talking about strategy as well. So that I'd probably put that
Christoph
one up there
added,
as well.
what are you listening to in your free time? So he just wanted to make sure that we understand how the question was meant. Is there anything else that you listen to in your leisure time?
Look, I'd probably say a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old screaming throughout my house.
Back to the rock band, right?
No.
And you're still drumming. You're still drumming. Can you do your
That's
drumming
right.
so that people understand that you're a real drummer, please, on your desk?
Look, look, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but I don't know if I can
Come
still
on,
get
please
all
do
the
it.
rudiments down.
I heard you before the show started.
I better, next time we do this,
next time
we do it, I'm going to put the camera into our music
room. As long as you say next time, I'm
out.
always fine. Yeah, you can use that all the time. Sylvia, hi, hello. Sylvia is can I say it? She's my love. She's here and she asks, what is your single biggest thing or advice for being as successful as you are?
Single biggest piece of advice. Look, surround yourself with good people, and I can only speak for myself, Dave, and just have the guts to say no more than you say yes. And even in the early stages,
what did you say no to?
And clients, people who want to work with you that you know in your gut aren't a good fit. And when I first started the business, I had a couple of people that I was colleagues that I called on and said, I'm starting a business. I'd love to work with you guys as a case study. We'll do it for a very low fee. And if it's successful, I want to be able to use this case study as a stepping stone to working with other businesses. Are you happy with that? And they're people that I trusted, people that I liked and admired. And from there, we started building a reputation with documenting all of our successes and sharing them on our website. And we started getting a lot of inquiry from different types of businesses, and I was very clear on the type of business that we want to work with. So we now say no, I would say, to probably 60%, 70% of the people that inquire via our website, Dave, because we know that they're not a good fit. The first inquiry is on price, and no matter how much, and we've even put it on our website. What is your expected budget for this type of work? And if they enter a certain level, we kindly refer them to our free resources on our website, because we know that we can't work with everyone. We're not a high-scale business. We don't churn out real estate websites. We don't churn out marketing strategies. We invest heavily in their success, and that takes time. And that means we can't work with everyone. So I think that is probably something that I would attribute to our success, is being able to say no and being comfortable with that.
And you also said surround yourself with the right people. So of course, the other side of this would be work with those that you really can add value to, or to their business.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just clients, but the people that people on your team. So now, whenever we bring on a new web developer or a new designer, or it's our team that interviews them. It's not me. So they're the first port of call. And if they're not a good cultural fit with our team, that's enough of a test for me to know that whether they're going to work out.
Talking about your team, those people, the 11, they sit where exactly?
So we have a mix of Australian-based team members and offshore. And our offshore team are based in Clark, which is about, depending on how far, whether you're driving or flying, from Manila in the Philippines. But Clark is essentially an old US Air Force base in the Philippines that is converted into a hub of economic activity over there. So enormous growth. Some of the world's biggest companies are setting up shop over there. And we started building our team over there back in 2016.
And when you say you want to surround yourself with good people, but they're in the Philippines, do you travel to the Philippines to meet every new person that you want to employ?
I don't travel every time we employ someone, but I'm there. Hopefully very soon. After all, we can travel internationally again, but 3 to 4 times a year. And at the end of each year, we have a team retreat. And last year, we took the whole team to an island in the Philippines called Boracay, which is a beautiful island, pure white sand, blue water. And we hired a villa there for a week and spent time
with a Y at the end.
Yeah, and
okay, just because you say it differently, and we spent time there 1.5 years ago, so I wanted to make sure it's the same island we talk about.
Cool. It's the same one. So it's been all cleaned up. They closed it, and we were getting kind of one of the first looks or glimpses at the new island. So that was something that we treat ourselves to every year, and we tell our clients that we're going offline for a week. You're not going to be able to contact us for a week. If it's urgent, of course, we'll be available. But this is our time to make sure that we're ready to go for next year.
But when you're on an island, do you work for the whole week?
Well, last year we had to fend off a typhoon that came through, like a really bad typhoon that came through the island the day that we landed there. So for the first day, it was pretty much just mopping up water in the villa. But we eat food, we talk, we go swimming, we went island hopping, fishing. We get to know each other on a much deeper level, Dave. And of course, we have a couple of strategy sessions as well. So we get the laptops out and we make sure that we're setting ourselves up for next year. We have a couple of strategic workshops that we run to look at what we've done this year, what are we going to do next year, what did we do this year that we're not going to do next year, and all of those things that any good business does. So yeah, that's something that.
But how much of the day do you spend in workshops?
Look, it's probably, I'd say, out of the 5 days that we go, maybe 2.5.
So half of the time was there to just get to know each other better, to enjoy the island, to have some fun.
Yeah, take a breath, have a holiday, and something that, I guess there's somewhat of a perception about hiring an offshore team, especially from companies in Australia. I can't speak for Switzerland, Dave, or other European countries, but there is a perception in Australia that hiring an offshore team is, there is a perception there. Some people don't necessarily agree with it.
So they would probably say that you only employ those people because they're cheap labor, and to you that's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, not at all. Their work ethic is phenomenal. I mean, our team last year, there was an earthquake in Clark. I think it was whatever the rating is of earthquakes, it was pretty high, and ripped down a bunch of buildings. Our team went and got their computers and set up at home literally that night. So the next morning, we were up and running straight away, and that was our team doing that. That wasn't me instructing them to go get the computers because we have to work tomorrow. That was because our team realized that they didn't want to miss any momentum. And then with the COVID stuff, there was a lockdown being imposed in the Philippines. Our team went and got their computers from the office, took them home, and we've been working at home ever since, from the day it started, with no change in momentum. So their work ethic and their attention to detail is phenomenal, and that is something that I'm sure that happens in you get that here as well, but I've found that the cultural, the things that I've learned from them and the things that I know that they've learned from having being a part of an Australian-based business has benefited their lives as well. So that's why I do it. It's absolutely got nothing to do with the perception that you.
I think
raised
there's
before.
also because Sylvia asked about the advice, a piece of advice that you could give. I think there was also a person who talked a lot about remote work or remote teams that influenced you quite a bit. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I think it's someone who we spoke about in yesterday when we caught up before the call, and I think someone who was quite prominent in that space was Chris Ducker. Now, I don't know Chris personally, but I am familiar with his business, and he essentially wrote the book on outsourcing called Virtual Freedom, and that's something that a lot of businesses have really enjoyed. Is the idea that you build systems and processes, and that can be performed by anyone, anywhere in the world, as long as you've got really good systems and procedures and checklists and all that sort of thing. So, people are familiar with Chris, and I'm familiar with his business model. That's certainly something that we've strived to do, is to make sure that we're a systems-driven business, not just an energy-driven business, because that's exhausting.
That comes pretty close to E-Myth, but he adds that you can work with virtual teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the fact is that they're 2 hours behind us, Dave. So when we're starting in the morning, they're right there with us. And when we're going home at night, or when our clients are going home at night, I should say, our team is still working for another hour or 2 hours beyond that. So there is a advantage to that as well.
Cool. Sylvia, if you wish to know more, please let us know. We also have another question from Feelings. Josh, do you see virtual reality having a bigger presence on real estate marketing, or is it just a fad?
Right. If you asked me that question 12 months ago, I would have said they've been talking about it for years. And when I say they, I mean people who have a vested interest in virtual reality. I'm a little bit old school. I don't believe it will become the thing that people think it will. And the reason I believe that to be true is that because our homes are, if you're going to view a property, right now they're really important because you can't, in a lot of places in the world, you can't go and look at properties for sale. So virtual reality is pretty good concept right now if you can't be there physically. But I think being in a house is physically, and viewing the property physically is something that people will always want to do. And I think virtual reality is, I think it will play a part of that. I just don't think it will, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. I don't think it will be as big as some people are predicting.
Maybe you could explain to those of us who don't know about the use of virtual reality in the context of real estate, what exactly the big discussion is about.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the idea is that you put a headset on, and you can load up some virtual tours of real estate or properties that you want to view. So if you're interested in 3-bedroom apartments with 2 bathrooms in Zurich, then you would load up all of the 3-bedroom apartments with 2 bathrooms in Zurich into your headset, and you go on a virtual tour through those properties without actually physically being in the property. And that is the whole concept of, or the promise, I guess, of virtual reality, which is you can be there without actually being there. And like I said, I think it'll play a part moving forward. But I think people love being physically there, looking at the property. If they're going to spend a huge amount of money on their biggest asset, you probably want to go and have a look at it physically. So I think it'll play a part.
Thank you very much. John, you asked the question. I'm not sure whether you asked the question or it just helped us to understand things that didn't really work here. If you had a question, please let me know. And please just type it in again so that I see it on my screen as well. Sylvia asks, what is your next big step in your business, Josh?
Our next big step in our business, look, online learning, Dave, is something that we're working on right now to a big degree. So through this, we have always run training events. So when you talk about content marketing and different content types, we've run events for nearly 5 years now, and training events. So hands-on, you bring a laptop into a room, we have 50 people in the room, we do it in 4 cities around Australia. It's me facilitating it, goes for 8 hours. We get in there, we learn, and then we go home and we implement what we've learned into our business. That has obviously been something that we haven't been able to do given the restrictions around travel right now. But I've always loved being in a room with people, and online learning is not something that I've ever really given much thought to. Given, it's just deeply ingrained in me to get out there and see people rather than do it through Zoom. When it comes to training and that sort of thing. So online learning right now is something that we're working on. We're building an online learning platform with our courses that we've run over the last 5 years turned into little workshops that people can consume at any time from anywhere. And that's something that we're investing a huge amount of time in right now that we should be launching in the next 30 days.
So I'm going through the questions that I would still have, unless there's questions from the audience that pop up here, which doesn't seem to be the case right now. So I had the same question that Sylvia already asked, but a little differently, framed a little differently. What was the best piece of advice you ever received about how to grow a business?
I think I go back to what I said earlier, Dave, about this idea that you got to know the type of business that you're building. And there's a book that some of your viewers might want to have a look at that is called 21 Assets, and it's essentially the first chapter in that book. You could essentially read the first chapter and learn everything that you need to about understanding the type, or being able to define the type of business that you want to build. And once you've done that, that will give you clarity on which direction you go. Are you a high scale business? Are you going after capital raising? Are you going to have a big team? Are you going down that path, or are you going in this direction, which we've taken, which is we bootstrap the company. We don't owe anyone anything. We've got profit in the business, and we have a smaller team, and we enjoy. That is our business. So I think once you understand the type of business that you have, it'll give you so much clarity, and that's something that I didn't get until probably about 3 years into starting my business. That I wish I had that advice 3 years earlier.
21 assets, right? Yeah. Was there very bad advice that you got, or maybe even heard several times? On business growth, okay?
Bad advice. Look, probably, again, something that I said earlier, this is probably something that my mother taught me very early on when I started my business. And she said, Josh, the customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer. And I've learnt that not to be true, that you don't have to bend over backwards. If you've got someone that is just extremely difficult to work with, it doesn't always have to be the case. And we've certainly, it pains me to say this, but we have fired clients in the past because of the way that they've spoken to our team, the way they've treated our team. And like I said earlier, if you take care of your team, the customer experience will follow. And if you've just got difficult people, difficult clients, you don't have to work with them. So we have fired a couple of clients in the past. So the customer is not always right, and the customer is
not even always the customer anymore. Because if you fire them,
they don't have to dictate how. Yeah, they don't have to dictate how you run your business. So life is way too short to work with people that you don't like, and we're very fortunate in our business that we get to work with amazing people, and we're really thankful and grateful for that.
Was there ever a situation in which you felt you embarrassed yourself, but it ended, or it turned out to be an important learning step?
I thought about this for a little while, and I couldn't pick one in particular, but I did pick one in particular. There was a moment when I was recording the podcast a few years ago now, and someone that I've admired for a long time is a real estate professional in New Zealand, and her name is Wendy Alexander. And Wendy is just an amazing human being, has an amazing story. I've seen her speak at a couple of conferences in the past, and I wanted to get her on the show to share her story with our audience, and I just felt like more people needed to hear it. She's real, she's raw, and she's honest, and just brutally honest. And I love that about Wendy. And so I got her on the podcast, and she's fierce, right? Like if you send her a big long email, she's the kind of person that'll write you back with like one word or two words, right? So she doesn't fluff about or muck around. And we recorded the interview. It was 40 minutes. And after the interview, she said, Josh, I'm off to Wales. I'm going to the UK for a holiday. So off she went for a holiday. And about a week later, I got around to editing the podcast because I was still doing it myself many years ago. And I realized that I deleted all of the recording somehow off my computer. So I had to call Lindy in Wales. And I forgot that she was on holidays, but she picked up and she said, I said, Wendy, I'm so sorry. And she said, Josh, it's actually okay. I didn't think I did a very good job on that recording anyway. Let's do it again when I'm back. And so I was very scared she was going to tear my head off. But it turned out to be something that we laughed about. We moved forward. we did a better recording. I think both of us were more proud of anyway. And I got to catch up with Wendy in New Zealand last year at a conference as well. So that's probably one moment I think that I was a little bit embarrassed, but it came good in the end.
We're wrapping it up in a minute. Before we do, we have a question asked by Sylvia. Very interesting. She says, thank you. Do you work with partners at all? And the question that comes with that is, if so, in what ways?
Look, in a commercial sense, we kind of do, yes. So we have some people that partner with our business when it comes to content creation. So we have some wonderful content creators here in Australia that we partner with who provide content to our clients. So it's a great companion. So what I'm talking about there is blog articles and custom content, ebooks, market reports, really highly researched material that we publish on our websites that we build. So they're a great companion for us when it comes to providing value to our industry. But we have some partnerships like that where they're more trust-based. We don't have any commercial affiliations, if you will. We like to keep it that way because something that I've always believed in is keeping ourselves fiercely independent, that we don't, the advice that we're providing to our clients is fiercely independent, that there's no commercial affiliation, if you will. And there's no motive behind it. If we're going to recommend a product or a service to someone, then we want to make sure that it's something that we like rather than something that we're getting paid to promote. So it's not to say that we wouldn't be interested in that, in working with partners in a commercial sense, but it's just not how we've done it to this point.
Josh, we said that the most important part, the most important pillar of your business growth was your podcast, and then we almost didn't talk about it. When we met back in 2016, you already had your podcast for 2 years at the time. After that, you doubled down on it, I believe. Can you tell us a little more about what happened next and what it did for your business?
Look, I started the business with nothing to sell, Dave. So the really short story is I called on people that I knew in the industry, that I trusted, I admired, and to share their story on our show, to build an audience of like-minded people who were more interested in learning about the people rather than just how much they make or how many properties that they sell. So that was the motive, and the idea, every time someone subscribed, we asked them, what is one thing that you'd like help with in your business when it comes to marketing right now? And the answers that we got from all our subscribers, which now sits at just over 30,000 people that get our Sunday morning broadcast every Sunday morning. People were asking for help with digital marketing training, Facebook ads, websites, content creation, all those sorts of things. So we built those products because it's what our audience told us that they wanted. So that is essentially how we came to providing the products and services that we have now, is because it's what our audience told us that they needed in their business. So that is how we grew the business. And probably the turning point, if I can say this, Dave, and I guess something that kind of goes to why podcasting is so powerful, and I'll finish on this, is that I was standing at the San Francisco airport going to a conference in the US, and I was talking to my wife as I was taking my bag off just getting it out of the airport, and someone came up to me as I was just after I finished the phone call and said, "Are you Josh?" And I said, "Yes." And he had an Australian accent, and he said, we haven't met, but first thing he said was, "I recognize your voice." And that was like a little bit creepy, but as we started talking, he said, "Look, I've been listening to your podcast and all the interviews you've been doing." And I won't mention his name, but he was the sales manager of one of our largest real estate franchises here in Australia. And we spent the whole week together at the same conference. It just happened we're going to the same conference, getting to know each other. And now we work with a lot of the agents within that business because of the relationship we made 14,000 kilometers away, and someone that recognized my voice. So podcasting transcends on so many levels. It's something about having someone in your ear for 40 minutes a week that podcasting gives that I don't think any other medium does. So I think it's an amazing medium for that purpose alone.
Cool, thank you very much. Gustavo behind the cameras, do we have another minute to wrap it up? Okay, because I see that the hour is up. I would like to do a recap, Josh. What I have learned during this hour is that you wanted to create wealth. That's how it started. Then you used what you already had. You knew a lot about the real estate industry. Then you had this desire of connecting with like-minded people of this industry, and you did something about it, which was starting your podcast. You had endurance, which I only understood today where you got it from, because you said you were doing triathlons. You must have endurance anyway, because a little while ago,
Dave.
when we met, you had done this podcast for 2 years and not much came off it, but you still kept doing it. When we met, you talked with the guy, the godfather of content marketing, Joe Pulizzi, and you got tips from him, but you also listened to everybody else at that conference, and you made your plan for how to use this podcast, and it worked out for you real nicely, as you just mentioned. I know from you that you're not doing it today, but that would be something for another show. It worked for you for years. It did the job that was needed to take you where you are. And then you found the right people, and you made sure that you surrounded yourself only by clients that you really like to work with. Is that about it?
Yeah, I think that's right about it, Dave. The only thing I'd add to that is the reason why we don't do the podcast right now is because we've moved into those other content areas. So we spend a lot more time blogging than we ever did. We run events, and we've got some, and video as well is another medium that when we were doing the podcast, we didn't do. So we made sure that we got that first channel or that first medium right first, and then we branched out only when we felt that was successful in its own
Josh,
right.
I'm very grateful that we had this hour. That was wonderful information. Thank you very much.
Me too.
It
Great
was,
to see you.
You're living on the other side of the world, but it's great that the internet brought us together again. Thank you very much, and have a good time, and be successful even in the future, or even more so in the future. Thank you very much, Josh.